Welcome to Shop Talk Live, episode number 339. Today, Amanda and I are going to present you with it's a special episode. We'll call it an interview episode. The first part of this episode was supposed to be included as part of my conversation with Sergey a few episodes back, and both conversations just ran a little bit longer than I expected them to, and both of them felt like they needed room to breathe on their own. So we decided to hold on to this conversation a little bit longer and release it later. Today we're talking to Robby Simon, a woodworker designer in Atlanta, Georgia. Both Amanda and I find his work incredibly inspiring and his story inspiring, and I think you will too. This conversation is broken up into two sections. I started a talk with him, and then Robby had to go in the middle of it. Amanda finished up the conversation later that week. I talked to Robby about his backstory. Amanda talks to Robby about his design inspiration, and it's a really fun conversation. I love Robby's story, and I think you will too. For 37 years, Quick Screws has been the trusted choice for professional and hobbyist woodworkers. Cabinet makers and furniture builders know that the right screw makes all the difference, which is why Quick Screws designs fasteners for specific woods and applications. The legendary Quick Screws pocket hole screw delivers secure, reliable joints with fine threads for hardwoods and coarse threads for general use, and high-low threads for softwoods and melamine. Want a screw that stops flush and eliminates chipping? Funnelhead does exactly that, making a top choice for melamine and a great fit for all woods. From drawer fronts to installation and conformat screws, even exterior rated fasteners, Quick Screws are built for speed, precision, and reliability. Find the perfect screw for your shop at your local distributor or at quickscrews.com. I'm just going to jump right in. And I'm going to introduce you as, if somebody forced me to make a list of the top 5 inspiring accounts on Instagram that I like. Honestly, I kind of don't want to be on Instagram, but I'm there because Robby's there.
That's hilarious, bro. Oh my
God. You make me see things differently. Thank you for sharing your perspective with the world and with woodworkers, and you've got like this, like also like you do like great woodworking and design stuff, and then you're also like this killer dad, and like your kid's a really good skateboarder, and it's like,
yeah,
like you have the coolest family in existence, I think. Dude, so how would you describe what you do?
Yeah, hey, my name's Robby Simon, and I am a Black woodworker, Black meaning African American, a woodworker from Atlanta, Georgia. And man, I'm just trying to create like a language, like for example, lots of, European woodworkers or whoever, not trying to say anything negative about anybody's approach to the thing. Mm-hmm. But if I had to, again, like I was birthed into a culture that prides individual expression. So whether it's hip hop, you can't repeat somebody else's like verse or bar without paying homage, or skateboarding, like everyone, we have this complete bag of tricks, but you want to do them your way. And so for woodworking, like there's definitely a Dutch or European motif and style that is very attractive that I've also been influenced by. Don't get it twisted. But, for me, it's like, how can I say something different, so that I'm not like feeling like I'm biting somebody else's style, or doing something, not trying to reinvent the wheel, just trying to have my own car. You know what I mean? And like for me, like I can take the things that I love, like, so it takes a lot of study. It takes a lot of, just appreciation to be able to do it at all. I'm just thankful to be able to do it at all. Like coming from the background that I come from, especially, like this is a huge privilege and honor And honestly, like, I cannot believe I can do woodworking at all in the slightest. And so to even just be able to do it is really humbling. But then, of course, and out of that gratefulness and thankfulness, I think it allows me to be like, okay, how can I do my best? And my best is just being me. And that allows me to have a unique and I think creative imagination toward just making anything at all. And so, again, delving into like what kind of language can I bring, right? Like what is the way that I'm gonna say this verse if I could, like how am I gonna do this trick? That's how I look at woodworking. It's like it's either gonna be a skateboard trick, a guitar riff or something, or like some other kind of thing. That's how I look at it so that I can yeah, come up with motifs and different things to be able to come out with products that I'm really, really excited about.
I've never heard anyone describe woodworking as a skateboard trick.
Yeah.
But like, so, okay. How does that work? Because like to me,
Yeah.
I know nothing about skateboarding, right?
Okay. I'll break it down. Okay.
Yeah. Like break it down.
So check this out. So like, there are building blocks. Like I tell people all the time, like a lot of people are intimidated by woodworking because they think woodworking is science, but it's actually magic. You know what I mean? Like, like there is a science to magic, but it isn't science. Like I don't have to do any hard engineering if I don't want to. I can do complete artistry in woodworking if I want
Uh-huh.
to. There is the hard engineering side if I want to. But no one should make you feel pressured that it is like this insanely scientific, impossible thing to do. There are building blocks, right? Like if I look at a table is just a big dang cutting board. Like a table is just a cutting board. Like and then a cabinet, a cutting board in four different directions. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
a chair is a cutting board in a bunch of different directions sculpturally. You know what I mean?
Like it all starts with a cutting board.
Yeah, like if I break it down like that, so basically to me, like in skateboarding, all tricks have to begin with an ollie. Like you can't do a kickflip without doing an ollie. It's impossible. Like I mean, it is possible, but that's not a kickflip. That's a pressure kickflip. Like where
There's
it's getting into the different realms and territories of things. Yeah, it's possible to express yourself that way. But at the same time, a kickflip traditionally, like what we all know to be a kickflip is an ollie plus a flick and the board turns around, does a barrel roll, a 360-degree barrel roll, you catch it and you land it. That's it,
okay, so I followed some of that, but I know there's like 13 people listening right now that were like, finally somebody's speaking my language.
Yeah.
So, okay. This is really interesting though, because like, all right, skateboard tricks, there's an artistry. It's a sport. It's, whatever.
Correct.
But everything has its fundamentals.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the basis of most skateboard stuff is an ollie, you're saying.
Yeah.
I equate all of this stuff. It always like comes back. The metaphors always come back to music for me because I get started as a musician, and it comes back to like practicing your scales.
Correct.
Like that's like how you get your comfort level.
Yeah.
And then from there so like the woodworking equivalent would be what of that ollie?
Okay, so for me, there's two approaches to it, right? Like just like there's different types of playing guitar, right? So the basics might change based on what kind of guitar you're playing. So if you're playing flamenco guitar, the basics are going to look completely different than if you're playing Metallica.
Preach. Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so the basics for me, I love Metallica. So let's go. Okay, like if I'm learning to play like if I'm learning to play Battery by Metallica, the basics might be like learning how to downpick,
Okay.
Like
Of course
really,
you know this stuff too. Okay, come on, Robbie. This isn't
like,
fair.
well, I'm, but it's a late, but you see what I'm saying? Like, it's a
Yeah, yeah,
late,
yeah.
like every single culture, like guitar playing has its own world and culture.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I bet there might be a person where it's like you look at them and you're like, I bet that guy plays guitar. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
bet that lady over there is a musician,
Mm-hmm.
or that person, and so it's like the same thing with, yeah, like woodworking in general. So the basics for, I think, woodworking would definitely change based on what kind of woodworking you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So, but most of it starts with, if you're making furniture, odds are you are going to have to mill that board in some kind of way.
Okay, sure. All right. Yeah. That's the
So,
ollie.
yeah, the type of milling that you're going to have to do is dependent on the end result you want to achieve. So if I'm carving, maybe being perfectly flat doesn't matter. If I'm making a sculpture of a giant bear, like with a chainsaw, if that's like how you get down, that's how you get down,
Yeah.
But for me, like, I know that it all starts with getting something flat. So using either a joiner, a big old plane, a hand plane if I need to, like for joining, and or something like that, getting it to thickness,
Mm-hmm.
learning how to square lumber. That would be the ollie for me. And then from there, I can do pretty much anything I need to do from there.
Because
But
everything else, joinery is all always easier if your lumber's milled.
correct,
It is the
correct.
basis.
Yeah, it's the basic. And so if you're, it's your scale, like, and then, whatever kind of, again, like joinery methods that you're using determine how precise you really got to get with your joinery, or joining,
Yeah.
So if you're joining and planing and, sawing a board to size, maybe again, if you're hacking at it with a chainsaw to create an elaborate sculpture, maybe the margins don't need to be that close,
Mm-hmm.
because maybe some of those things can be hidden later or whatever. But I know that if I'm making a table or a fine a cabinet, where I want all of the drawers to be piston fit, well, I should probably get those things pretty darn flat.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's the way it goes, and so I think there's always approaches to things, like, again, that saying, woodworking is magic, it's not science. There is a science to magic, but it is not science. People figured this out that did not know that gravity was pulling apples to the ground. you know you know what I mean?
I've never thought of that, but oh my gosh, you're incredibly right. Yeah, like they had chairs before gravity was a known quantity.
Yeah.
So like it can't be that complicated.
Well, it is immense, right? Like, to not take away from it and say that it's a simpleton's thing, but to the entry point isn't the necessity to entry is not barricaded by your need for a degree in, like, woods. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
don't need to know what lignin is in order to do woodworking. You
Okay.
don't need to know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
You do not. You don't need to know the hardness scale by memory
Yeah.
in order to do
Like
woodworking.
it's all cool, but
Yeah.
it's not neat. Okay. So let's talk about real quick because you, for me, you got started at a makerspace. So
That's
like
right.
with Rebel, right?
Yeah, Rebel Owaka. He is another African American woodworker from Atlanta, Georgia. Builds, chairs and things like that, primarily using hand tools. He builds chairs that enslaved people made the way
Mm-hmm.
that enslaved people made them. So
Yeah.
in honor of those things and to showcase the woodworking techniques. And so it's really, really fascinating stuff. So.
What was it like learning from him?
Dude, it was awesome, man. And I mean, again, like growing up, I'm again, this whole starting point is just to say how thankful I am to be able to do it at all. It seems like a miracle, that I'm able to do it, and finding Rebel, finding someone who would say yes to giving me, like allowing me to access into this at all, it was really really special, and it motivated me a lot. I think about apprenticeship and definitely in my community, and to show people that people in my community, like black people in general, people of color, are interested in doing this.
Yeah.
And we we like, yeah, like we want more. I especially want more maker spaces like this,
Yeah.
you know like more access to things. I think that there should be that, like in trade school, like in high schools, I think that there should be something about making furniture, like things for the inside of homes, not just homes themselves, that there is another side to woodworking, other than just, framing, which is
Yeah.
important. All
Yep.
of those things are important.
Yep.
Construction is amazing, especially living in Atlanta, living in Georgia. 9 times out of 10, somebody's parent, somebody, your cousin, somebody's in construction and, working their behind off. You know what I mean? And we salute to those people, and all of those people that are just out there doing it, working hard. But again, like, I want people to know that that there is a general interest. Like every single time I meet somebody who looks like me, not only just like white or black, like kids in hardcore, like kids in punk, that I grew up with, are like, I've always wanted to do that. Like it's a thought I've never uttered outside of my mouth. It's been living in my brain, but now that I know someone who
They
does it,
see someone like
yeah.
them doing it.
Yeah, so it doesn't
Yes.
have to be just like your ethnicity. It's
No.
just like your circle of influence. Like people are like, "Holy crap, like you made a chair. Like I am now one step closer to me knowing how to make a chair."
Yeah.
And so it's like there is a general interest, and I hope that, again, more woodworking programs. Like we don't really have a chair, like there's chair making classes, like Windsor chair making classes all around the Southeast. None in Atlanta, which is so dumb. But like there's none. There's the woodworking school in Florida. There's one in North Carolina.
Uh-huh.
There's, I think, some maybe more westward outside of the state,
Yeah.
but nothing in Georgia. Like it's so dumb. But anyway, I want there to be more resources for people, to be able to do it. Uh but all of that to say, that's what working with Rebel made me feel, is the passion to go like, dang, I can do this. And other people now also want to do this, knowing that I can do it.
Yeah.
And I can't say enough about apprenticeship. A lot of people want, like in the age of YouTube now, we just think people pop up with $1 million shops,
Yeah.
like in Powermatic sponsorships. You
Uh-huh. Yeah.
know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it seems like there's a huge barrier of entry. I cannot tell you the amount of confidence that someone saying yes to you
Yep.
and saying, "Hey, you're worthy of teaching, and I'm here to help you through these mistakes." And it was a real reparenting. Like he had no idea how much internal stuff he helped heal. I didn't grow up with a dad. I didn't do any of that stuff. The first time my encounter with woodworking was like this kid named Bryce in my Boy Scouts troop told me, like, he was a little kid. He didn't know really what he was saying. He was old enough to know that what he was saying was probably a dumb idiot jerk thing to say. But like he was just like, "Hey, don't you need a dad to do that? Like woodworking?" And his dad was like the leader of the Boy Scout troop. And it
Yeah.
was classic, right?
Yeah.
And so I was just
That's
like,
like
"Oh,
straight out of a movie.
yeah." Like I
Like,
was
yeah.
like, "Oh yeah, okay, cool. Like I can't do this. I don't look like you," meaning like my family doesn't look like yours. I literally don't look like you. And I don't have what it takes to do this. So I just never did that. I never touched a bit of woodworking, and it wasn't until I started doing woodworking in my 30s, well, not my 30s, but I was like maybe like this was 4 years ago. Yeah, no, dang, I was 30 years old. Um, so I'm 34. My birthday just passed, but it wasn't until like I turned 30 and I told my grandma that I was. She died last year. But I told my grandma that I started doing woodworking, and she told me that my grandfather did woodworking. He passed when I was like a really little boy, like one.
But
Um,
it's been in you the whole time.
Literally, it was a
Yeah.
full circle moment because I don't know what it was that was calling me to want to learn. Because again, I didn't grow up, I didn't go to like an art museum until I was like well into my 20s, like 27. You know what I
Okay.
mean?
Yeah.
Like I hadn't been to an art museum. Like I never did any of that stuff. And so I wasn't around design. I didn't go to college. Like I didn't go to school for any of that stuff. And so learning all of that was crazy, that full circle moment. So even though, yeah, I didn't grow up with a dad, I had this guy, say yes to me, at learning, and it truly inspired me to push further, into this thing that I found and that I found to be really interesting. And wouldn't I know it, like the legacy was in me the whole time. Like
Yeah.
even and it was hard. Like the journey was hard. Like my drive to the makerspace is an hour. You
Oh,
know?
wow.
And so I bring my son with me. I have a family, I have a full-time job,
Yeah.
you know, and I sell pieces because I need to pay for my membership. That's
Yeah.
basically all it does. I'm not a rich guy. Again, I don't have a Powermatic sponsorship or Festival one. Festival, if you're listening to me, give me stuff. That would be so sick. The only thing that came of it is
Powermatic
if they
too. I
get
mean,
me
come on.
like
Let's just not stop at Festool.
yeah,
Powermatic, Saw
yeah,
Stop,
like
wherever,
I'll take
whoever's out there.
anything.
Yeah.
All of whoever, whoever, you know, like all of you guys, like I use these tools. I can't believe, like, again, I walked into Mass Collective, the makerspace I work out of, to like like I'd never seen a jointer in my life, but
Yeah.
I saw one on YouTube. And I was like, wow, I can't believe this. Like, this is real. Like, I get to use this machine that I've only seen on YouTube, and I get to like make stuff with it. And I was in there every day, dude. I was waxing all the beds. I was so thankful
This is
because
my
I,
baby now.
dude, like I would be sweeping. I swept the whole shop because I was just so thankful. There were times where like I would be the only one in there, and I was, like
Well,
I said, I was just so thankful.
so what did you did you find Robel? Did Robel find you,
Yeah.
and then you found the makerspace, or was it the
Yeah.
other way? Like, what's the
So
the lineage
Rebel
there?
was foundational in starting Mass Collective.
Oh, really?
And so then he had a space in there, like he had his own little like shelf, and so he would make stuff in there. And then I had met him through a mutual friend, and I said, "Hey, would you be willing to teach me?" Because at the time, so my job, I've worked for 9 years for a company called Mailchimp, and Mailchimp is a great platform.
Everybody knows Mailchimp if you're on the internet. So yeah,
It's
yeah.
amazing. And at the time I was doing their facilities maintenance and aesthetics.
Hmm.
So I started buying, woodworking and furniture pieces before I knew what it really was. And I was buying things from local artisans. Now, sometimes I wouldn't even meet the artisan, you know what I mean? But I would just be like, "Oh yeah, we need a cabinet that's like this size." And we're gonna, pay your studio to make it. And we were working with a guy named Kendrick Anderson a lot, and
Okay.
he's amazing. He teaches at Wood School of Maine. Kendrick is unbelievable at woodworking, fine tool craftsmanship, dovetails, like you name it.
Yeah.
Um, and so I was buying a lot of stuff from him, and I was like super intimidated. I couldn't even believe that a human being made the things that he was making. This like cabinetry, custom pulls.
Which
He,
side note, props to Mailchimp for like
yeah, dude,
for outfitting with
yeah,
like artisan craftsperson made
yeah.
items. This is yeah, okay, sorry.
Dude, it was awesome.
Yeah.
And then I would work with my manager at the time on building other custom pieces. So we built floating shelves,
Okay.
out of plywood. He was also another like master craftsman turned like guy that works corporate. And so, we were building mail cabinets and all these different things. And so I was getting basically a crash course in how to make things. I just didn't know like any of the methods. So basically, like I would go over my manager's house at the time and like on the weekend or something. And we did like two projects. We did the project where we built these floating shelves together. And then we did a second one where we built like a little cabinet for like mail. And those two things like sent me off to the races where I was like, finally, I'm doing what I'm seeing online.
Hmm.
We can finally do like a real big custom project. And I would be like, again, like following them along, but I didn't have any confidence to do it myself, really. I was just assisting them do it. But I was purchasing a bunch of stuff for our offices because I could, roughly measure things and say, we need it to be this big and this tall. And then so I started getting the pieces from Kendrick. And then I met a friend who said, I have a friend named Rebel.
Hmm.
And I was like, man, I've been watching like modern builds on YouTube and Ben
Hmm.
Ueda and like the rest of the pantheon of YouTube woodworkers,
Yep.
the Chris Salomonis and everyone like Johnny Builds. Like I have watched probably every single YouTube woodworking channel there
Same.
is, with the exception of the new ones. Um, and so I mean, like Mike from Modern Builds, like God only knows how many times my wife has had to. I think she might know Mike from Modern Builds better than me. I just have it playing in the background.
Yeah.
I was just so inspired by all of the approachable techniques that these people would have to it that it drove me insane that I couldn't do it. I didn't have like the tools or anything. So
Yeah.
I'd like literally, I don't know what it was, but I like found a lumber yard called U Tree and I started buying wood. I was like, I'm going to learn this one way or another. I just bought walnut because I just wanted to. Like I bought a
Like you
bull
didn't have like
any tools. I
and
didn't
you're
have
buying
any tools.
wood.
And I was like, and I strapped it like inside of my Honda Accord. It was like a 9 foot board.
Honda Accords can fit. Yeah.
I'm telling
Anyway, there's people know. You fold
you,
that
dude.
back seat down and you can
Yeah.
get some lumber in Hondas.
Dude, I love that car. And so I was just loading my car down with like I think I bought 8 quarter board and then a 4 quarter board. And
Of
I was just
walnut.
like, yeah, I just would look at it. Like I was so I was so obsessed with it. Like I had no idea what to do. And then one by one, like for Christmas, I'd get like I got a miter saw,
Yeah.
you know. And then I got like a Ryobi miter saw. I knew that Diablo was like a brand on YouTube that
Yeah.
people use. So I got a Diablo blade, and then I started just hacking. Like I just started making cuts,
Yep.
and then I was like, yeah, like I got some walnut, like blah blah blah. Like I really want to build a project with it, and I would just start telling people, and then they were like, well, one day one of my friends was like, you need to talk to Rebel, man. Like Rebel does like woodwork, and I was like, who the hell is that? And he was like, he's my friend, and he can help you, like build stuff. So then I met him, but I couldn't get any time with him because I was still working full time.
Hmm.
So then the pandemic happened. And then
Oh, the pandemic, woodworking's greatest boon.
dude, the pandemic happened, and because my job is the office, not just at the office, um, I was at home, and so
Uh-huh.
I was like, dude, it was a really depressing time for me. I, you know, I, as a recovering addict, I realized, oh, I'm also addicted to my schedule. Like my schedule helps me stay sober.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm like, dude, wait a minute. My schedule's out of whack. My job definitely gone because there's no way they're gonna pay for me to like just be at home. And low key, MailChimp did. They paid for us to like be at home because we were dedicated. We were the ones coming in. We wiped down every single surface. We repainted every single wall in the building, and we had hundreds of thousands of square feet. I probably have a world record for how much wall I have singularly magic erased. Um, like legitimately, I might have the world record. I don't know yet, but literally, like while the world was, inside their own homes, we had to figure out a way to go into the office and be of value,
Mm-hmm.
because of this company that was really awesome. And so, but the first year we were off. Like we literally did not do anything for like the first year. And during that year, I came up with a brilliant idea.
What's
I
this?
said, hey, why don't y'all pay for me to take this furniture building apprenticeship from Rebel as learning and development?
And then I'll be able to do the stuff
Yeah,
in-house.
period. And
Dude,
and
dude,
they and
dude, dude.
I was like, they're not gonna say yes. But Rebel had a lot of stuff under his belt. He was managing Habitat for Humanity. So all of the Atlanta builds for homes. So not only did he know home construction, he knew how to weld, and then he knew fine furniture. So
Yeah.
it was a win-win. So
Yeah.
and then I had a great another tie because Mass Collective was going to be the ones where we would do it. So there was like real overhead with like insurance and like all these different things.
Okay.
It was a 501(c)(3), and they used Mailchimp. So it was like a win-win-win-win. And then I again got to go. I'd never attended Mask Collective until I met, Rebel. We would meet together, masked up, far away from each other,
Mm-hmm.
and we would, do woodworking. So passing things along the joiner, sending things through the planer, and then I designed and I built a table as a part of that apprenticeship.
Mm-hmm.
And I built it relatively quickly because I was only supposed to go in there Mondays and Thursdays, but I wasn't going in the office. I was going every day. Like
Because
I was
you
taking
gotta
me.
keep busy.
They were like, I mean, we were on mute. We'd be on Zoom, so I'm on mute. And of course, like the table saw is running, the CNC is running, like everything, and I'm just covered in dust, with the background blurred out behind me, random people walking back behind me, like covered in sawdust, you know, and and I'm in the thing, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. And of course they knew they, I was like, yeah, I'm in the shop today finishing everything up. This is like the things I'm working on, and the other members of my team were also doing some really, really cool projects as well. We were all just getting creative because we were
Mm-hmm.
like, we were just trying to stay busy and showcase that we were working. We weren't eating up this company's
Yeah.
money and so yeah, I made a table, and then it was awesome. I raffled that table off, and then used the money to, go toward a good cause, because I mean, I didn't need a dining table at the time. And so I was able to gift that table to someone, and it was just really, really cool, and I was just very, very excited to be doing it. And then I made other stuff. Like I was like, okay, well, if I made a table, I wonder what else I can make. And then I made a lamp, and then I made a cabinet, and then I made all this other stuff. And then I was like, holy crap, I think I got a whole collection of furniture. And then I was like, wouldn't it be crazy if I like took pictures of it and then like just sent it to places? What if something came of this? That would be crazy.
Yeah.
And so then I started realizing people were into what I was making. And I was like, holy crap, like, dude, this is awesome. Like, I can't believe that people like was coming out of my brain, you know, and so I was just so blessed by that. And then yeah, I started just posting it, and then I took pictures of it, video, and because I'm also just really into visual arts in
Yeah.
general, that was another muscle I got to exercise was, you know, like, hey, let me take really unique and amazing photo and video of this stuff so that I can make a website. And I did all that. And luckily, I was working at a business that helped small businesses. So all I had to do was pay attention, you know, and, and so it was just really, really cool. And so all that to say, you know, I want to give a caveat too. All that to say, the part of the journey where I started woodworking versus the part of the journey where I got interested in woodworking,
Hmm.
that was a 5, almost 6 year gap. So I was 5 years of just getting stoked on like roided out on YouTube videos.
Uh-huh.
I was injecting myself with YouTube videos. That's basically what I'm saying. Like for literally for years before I ever like touched a piece of equipment, you know? And so if that's you or if that's somebody else like listening to this podcast or reading words or a transcription or whatever, like you don't have to start tomorrow. You know, like
It's okay. Yeah.
yeah, like the journey it was long, you know, but don't give up. Like there is a place for you in this. There is a place for all of us in this, and I believe it has helped my mental health. Like physically building something physically bigger than you is astounding.
Yeah.
Like legitimately, you know, and being able to make it, being able to plan something out, being able to fail, that was like some of my biggest, most amazing lessons, you know? And so I'm just, like I said, like I'm just stoked, man, you know?
You seemingly live at stoked. Like
Yes.
you start the day stoked. Okay. So there's a few things that I want to talk about. I want to talk about like your design and your aesthetic and your inspirations.
Yeah.
But there's this really specific thing that I want to talk about. You
Yeah.
have been in a situation where you were applauded by a
Yeah.
room of people,
Yeah.
and not only a room of people, not like just some random room with like a Ben Strano in it, but Tyler Perry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, tell us about this.
So again, this is a testament to, so I've worked for MailChimp for 9 years. This is my ninth year, you know, and this is, I'm gonna say it. I don't care who likes it or not. DEI is important. I
I hear
don't
you.
I don't care what you think. Yeah, I'm a DEI hire, and I'm proud of it. And I've done amazing work for my company because they gave me a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Know, they gave a kid a chance who otherwise would not have been looked at. It doesn't mean I stole somebody else's job that was more qualified. I told them I got hired for a junior level position and I happily, you know, worked my butt off to learn every single thing I could. I didn't even know how to use the Google Suite. You know what I mean? I
Mm-hmm.
was working in factories, you know, all of these different things. And having this job changed the trajectory of my life, you know, and it doesn't mean not hiring somebody qualified. It just means hiring somebody dedicated. A lot of times I would be in the office before everyone and I'd be the last one out, you know, working on projects or doing things, you know, trying to learn, trying not to fail, you know, and I just truly love the people of this company. And I was able to, you know, on my lunch breaks, learn things from my coworkers, you know, like, hey, how to make a presentation or how to do these things. People willing to give of their time and their generosity. Uh, you know, I like, again, I have so many stories of people who were just willing to take lunches with me and being able again like I had to put in that work. I had to do what I had to do. But I served everyone at our company, you know, with the utmost respect. So whether it was making their new desk home or outfitting their new office with amazing furniture, whatever the case may be, being able to do that service with a smile, being able to talk to them, congratulate them, tell them that they are doing amazing, seeing that they're nervous and sitting in their office and just being an audience to them giving the presentation that could change the trajectory of their life in my company. The years and years and years of being given to and giving back culminated in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Where I got to build two chairs and a coffee table for Soledad O'Brien and Tyler Perry, and it was a huge honor, and it was, I had a long way to go. I didn't receive many accolades doing that work. I didn't receive any promotions, doing that work, but that day I got the greatest promotion, which was the admiration of my fellow peers and my coworkers,
Yeah. And it's a beautiful moment. I've watched it multiple times. I just, like I said, I'm just so glad that other people experience accolades.
All right. I am so excited to do the second half of this. You told a great story at the beginning, or first half of this with Ben. This is a unique one where we get to do a 2-part episode, but I was just talking to you off record about design and stuff and getting into it. And we started talking about your introduction to craft, the whole idea of your grandfather being a woodworker without you knowing it. And I just love this story. So I'd love for you to just kind of elaborate on what we just talked about.
So just going back again, my grandfather growing up was a larger than life character to me. It was a normal, talk to my family, but to me, I growing up, in my, background, I didn't have a dad. I never met my grandfather, who died when I was 1 year old. And he just was like he was a hero. He literally is an American hero. And he fought in World War II. And that's significant to this story. You didn't have a lot of accounts of Black service members from back then, but we have all of this memorabilia from his time in the war and his brother's time in the war. And I was just telling you about this insane photo that I'll send to you.
We'll put it on the notes, so people can see it if you're down for that.
It's so sick. Oh, 100%. It's so sick. It's like him, his best friend, and a stool with a bottle of wine on top of it, and one of the enemy's helmets from World War II. So if you are familiar with World War II, you know what helmet I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And so one of them boys was under there, and underneath it just says somewhere in France, and then in the background you can see smoke, they just ripped this place to shreds. Sorry, France. No, I love French people. I don't know, but back then that's where this battle happened, and there's a date on it, and I looked up the date, and that's where these people were. At this time there was a battle. They were taking this part of France, trying to liberate it. And it was just so cool. And so when he got back from the war, specifically in New York, I can't speak to the rest of America, but that's where my family migrated to after they moved here from Barbados. And so when they moved here from Barbados, went into the war, after the war, my grandfather, who basically just helped save the world, pretty much. That's that, at least in my mind.
Yeah.
George, that's his name, George Griffith. And he came back and started doing carpentry. I had never known this. And I started doing woodworking and furniture making and designing 4 years ago. And my grandmother, who died last year, I told her that I had been doing this, and I was showing her pieces of my work. And she was she looked at me and at this time she also suffered from dementia. So the fact that she was remembered, like coherent and remembered, she, something about this, like, you know, something about me saying that to her, like triggered something. And she turned to me and she said, your grandfather did that. And I was like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, like what, let's like, tell me that part of the story.
Yeah.
And so she started like, pointing at stuff in her house that I've known was there my whole life,
But you didn't know
that,
your grandfather
that,
made it.
yeah. And
That's crazy.
yeah, and he was like, yeah, he was a cabinet maker, and he did all this different types of stuff. And I was like, what the hell? The other thing is, he also was an accomplished pianist. A pianist. He played at Carnegie Hall. He was a carpenter. Like this,
all
like, yeah, like he's 007. You know what I mean? Like, this is the craziest guy. Like, so he was always a hero to me growing up. And it just felt so cool to be able to do something where it was like, wow, this legacy of making, and again, we, not to make a racial thing out of it, but, like Black people are not, like, I guess, cataloged in the canon of woodworking things,
right.
And so it was hard to like see myself. And so to know like this is part of my history, gave me a lot of pride, not only to be where I'm from, but also to be, who I am, and to be doing what I'm doing, and to continue to do it, and to want to teach other people, so that we can continue to build this legacy of woodworking and making, and to make it like cool, that it is like a normal thing. It's not something that you have to have special knowledge. You don't have to. It's magic. It ain't science.
I mean, I think what you do is magic.
Well,
and you're
you
absolutely
so much.
right. Like, yeah, there's a science to it. Sure, there's techniques and stuff like that. But I think what you do with it is so, and like, after hearing, I got to listen to the first half of the episode before we met up, right? And so hearing your history and like the way you've turned this into something completely your own, speaks volumes to that,
Yeah, thank you.
No, I really mean it, and I'd love to like. I think you have this really unique experience and really like such a amazing example of like what a design and like execution voice can be.
Yeah.
I've never seen a more cohesive, like, I haven't seen many cohesive bodies of work. So like your furniture is so, I'm like picking through your website right now, right?
Yeah.
And the way you've like executed your designs is so cohesive and so on brand. And like, I know you mentioned before you're a visual artist. I love your history tied into this, and like, but your design voice speaks. I think it's so strong because, and I didn't mean to cut you off on your story, but like, I think it speaks to all of this experience that you've had, right?
All right. Yeah.
You don't see a body of work like that. From somebody, you're so humble about it too, like of like, oh yeah, I just jumped into this. And I mean, I know you haven't just jumped into it, you've dedicated yourself to that, but like it's incredible to see like your pieces.
Thank you. And I think where it comes from, I treat anything that I learn, I treat it the same way that I learned how to play drums. I am not sure I am a good designer or woodworker, but I'm 100% positive I can play drums really good.
Okay.
I spent most of my life studying it and playing it. I played drums since I was 4. And the way that I learned how to play drums is the way that I learn anything. And so one is I realized after I got used to like what it felt like to play drums, then it was like, well, how do I want to play drums? Get a chair, I would face the wall, and I would make a drum set out of my books. And I played from front to back every single song on Dookie. And I just remembered this is what it felt. This is when I get a drum set, this is what it's going to feel like. Because I've seen drummers, they use this foot to do this drum. They use these hands to do this. And so I was able to figure out how to do that. And I could imagine myself playing that for hours. I could imagine myself with other people playing it. I could imagine what the drums even felt like. So then my descriptions in my brain of what drums were became more and more magnified. And then one day I got a drum set. My grandmother, who I just told you, she bought me a drum set. And the first drum set, I remember I got it from Dirt Cheap Music and Smyrna, Georgia, if anyone from Georgia knows where that is. And we drove it all the way back to my house in Hiram, Georgia, which is like very far away from Smyrna. So it's like an hour and a half, you know?
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so got it there. I set the whole drum set up. My mom is like, Jesus Christ. Like, this is going to suck so bad because he has not had a drum set. And I got on there and I started playing Dookie. Like, and my mom comes running downstairs and is like, how did you know how to play drums? I was like, I've been playing drums in my room. Like for years. You know, and
did that translate? Did that translate to woodworking then? Like, did that?
Yeah.
You talked about like watching enough YouTube to see.
Oh my God.
Machines.
Yeah. Like I probably can. So, I mean, I'm talking the YouTube heavyweights. We're talking Chris Alamone, you know, John Malecki, Jonathan Katz Moses, like Mike from Modern Builds, April Wilkerson, everyone. I know everyone. Like I've probably watched their video. And thank you for making those videos. You know, like if there's any encouragement to people who like, oh man, I don't know why I'm making YouTube videos. This sucks. Like literally you gave me something that I literally did not know I could do woodworking, watch these videos and then did it. Like, so you know what I mean?
It's like, starting to like represent the books in your bedroom, right? Like,
yeah. Like, and exactly. I would collect them like, and that is how I would play drums. Like I had, you know, my, and that's what gets me into design as well. So I knew what design and what woodworking I liked, but then I started asking deeper questions. Like, what do those people that I like, who do they like? You know, and then like, who influences them? You know, and then everyone was talking about this guy, George Nakashima, you know, and, you know, obviously I learned about him and I was like, hey, his name's George. My granddad's name's George. That's kind of crazy, you know, and,
love that.
And so it was an amazing thing. And then I would meet my, you know, woodworking mentor. His name's Rebel Awaka, and he is an Ethiopian American, amazing craftsperson. Makes insane chairs by hand and splits the wood, taught me to sharpen, taught me how to use a joiner, planer, everything. And I, you know, kind of previously touched on that in the first half of the video, so I won't spend too much time there. But, you know, learning about those influences from, you know, his perspective. And so that's what I would do was like, I got obsessed with those makers on YouTube and I started imagining myself like, oh, when I get a joiner, I'll run my hands across it like this. This is probably what it feels like. And then when I use a planer, this is what it will feel like to do that. And because, I mean, it was just this childlike thing, you know, like I guess it's easy to get really discouraged. Like I don't have those things and I'll never have them. And, you know, and it's like, that's like a really bad way of viewing the world.
It's frustrating. Sure. Yeah. Like
it is.
Yeah. It's not having the accessibility to those tools, but having all this. And in my head, like, did you have designs in your mind that you were like ready to execute once you had your hands on the tools?
Yes. That was like step 3. And that's what I think it takes is like, you imagine something. That's what I tell my son too, you know, like you imagine something so vividly and you make it more and more specific in your mind. You know, like I was always told daydreaming is really bad, but in actuality, daydreaming is my biggest skill because if I can imagine a piece so vividly in my mind that it may not be the best piece in the world. I don't care if it is or not, but I can imagine what I want to make to the degree that it is so vivid that it's so real in my brain that it has to become real. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I have these like dreams about furniture, right?
Yeah.
I'll design furniture while I'm sleeping. And then I don't know how else you get it out, right?
Yes.
So I love that. Yeah, that's happening for you. I've never actually heard anybody express it that well. So it's like really exciting to talk to you and hear that that's a whole thing. And also like really good venture into woodworking is like, hey, once you get your hands on the tools, like
exactly. And there's so many ways to make, and you know, there are different designers that I learned about that challenged for me what it mean. Like it's like, oh, I can make a table whatever it is I want, and as long as it supports the general idea of what table is, you know. And I don't know.
I also think it's so powerful to like design without restriction, like of joinery and stuff first. I've always been taught that. And I think that like, I see like Nakashima in your work. I do.
Thank you.
I see there's like a thread of that. And you've taken such a like really definitive like route in that I think it's so cool, like that you're able to like spin that in a way that's uniquely yours.
Yeah, and so it's really, really fun, and you know, now I get to, I guess for me, so you know, like you said, you know, did I have designs in mind? Yes, I did, because you know, I coming from a culture, so you know, growing up, learning about traditional African American culture, you know, it's big on your own style, right? Like whether it's hip hop, you know, you don't hear one rapper like repeating another rapper's like bars without referencing that rapper, you know, because then it's like you just stole that guy's lines, you know?
Yeah.
And there's this huge emphasis on originality, you know, not individualism, originality, you know, like it's a collective thing, you know, and so it's really cool to encounter, you know, culture that way. And so whether it's breakdancing or hip hop or graffiti, skateboarding, you know, for me, it was like punk and hardcore and having like a DIY mentality. Like you have no idea. I've been to shows at churches. I've been to shows at someone's house. I've been to, you know, punk shows at like venues. I've been to punk shows literally at a loading dock before, you know, like people can mosh anywhere. Like it has challenged it's challenged my preconceived notion of what a venue is, you know? And so because being a part of these subcultures that are boundary pushing, not on purpose, but just out of necessity, you know, I've noticed that same thing with woodworking, you know, like out of necessity, anything can be a table. Out of necessity, anything can be, you work with the tools that you have. You don't necessarily need, you know, again, shout out Festool, but, you know, I love Festool. I love what you guys do, you know, but you don't need one, you know, if you can't start there, right? If you can find you know, like a number 8 point, like plane and just join boards together, make a ton of boards that you can, you know, make a ton of cutting boards. That's what I did. I literally made like 10 cutting boards, stole them all, and then bought a domino. You know, but I had, you know, I did all of that so I could like figure out joinery by myself, figure out like how glue lines work, figure out like my tools that I had at my disposal. Sure. And I think And I think that just honestly, just being innocent in a way and like humble and just being like, I just want to do this, to just see myself do it. Like
Mhm.
I cannot express to you how unbelievable it is that I can do this. Like, I can't believe that it's the one of the only things I've ever like in my adult life that I've said, I want to do this, and it
Mhm.
just happened, you know,
Yeah.
and the
I
pieces
can
kind of
relate to that. Yeah. It's just like,
I'm just so
how?
thankful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm thankful to
I,
the community in my area, you know, for
Mhm.
just being so open and willing, you know, to, and also just, I just had a lot of audacity for the first time. Like I was just so determined because I think I was, I had these ideas in my head that I really wanted to learn to get out,
Mhm.
you know, and I was burdened to just make them.
You, in the first half of this podcast, you said I showed up. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it wasn't necessarily opportunity. I just showed up, and like that
Yeah.
speaks volumes on everything, and it reflects what you've done. Like I, it just more and more you talk, it's like so exciting to hear about because it is like a such a good example of like just show up, you know, like
Yes.
and
Yes.
man,
Yes.
everything you've said has been so powerful too. Like influence over like
Yeah.
inspiration. You know, like you can
Yeah.
tie that into your work. And
Yeah.
design, I think, is like very hard for people because they're trying to make an original thing, right?
Yeah.
But you're like, no, pull from that and make
Yeah.
it yours. And you've made a completely new thing. It's a thing I have never seen before. And
Thank you so much.
yeah, it's like so inspirational to like see that.
And I found that a lot of people struggle with that. So what I did, or what I was working on, is a manifesto on creativity, like a thing about how to get what's in here like out, you know,
Mhm.
and where and how to get influence. Like people don't really understand that, and I think that's like a bear. If I can give back, that's what I can give back. I can't, you know. Again, I'm not like yeah, like I am not coming up with new joints, you know, or something. Like I'm not coming up with like,
You sort of did, right? What was that?
I, I
The
kind of,
the king joint?
yeah, I kind of did. It's a Nakashima style joint and a Maloof style joint.
Yeah.
Um, it's like a rabbited dadoed thing that fits into the back of a seat.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm super stoked on it. I just always wanted it. That's like the hardest joint I've ever made so far in my
I loved it.
4-year woodworking career. You know, and so I get that like people probably have made crazier stuff, but that was I just couldn't believe that I did that, and on a very special day that's significant to me, um,
No, it was
and
amazing. I was like, yeah, that's exactly what we
thank
need.
you. Thank
Like,
you so much.
yeah.
Yeah, I loved it, and I loved being able to honor Dr. Martin Luther King on that day by
Mhm.
just being able to complete a really hard joint.
I love it.
So yeah, so what happened to me with influence, especially inspiration. So I know that my influences, as far as designers, are like Ettore Sotsas, you know, George Nakashima, Hans Wegner, like,
Mhm.
you know, I know those names, but they have one thing in common in that they represent their cultures really well. So I was like, oh
Okay.
wow, how can I communicate my own culture, like not just black culture, but me, you know,
Mhm.
like me going to punk shows is a part of that culture as much as me, you know, skateboarding. So whether you see common things like that look like skateboard trucks, that look like skateboards, like the popsicle shapes, you know, the squiggly bow tie that
Yeah.
I
It's like
did.
iconic for me, for you. That's like your like signature
So
move.
the back of George Nakashima's shop is shaped like that. That's why I did it like that.
I didn't realize that. Okay.
There's a cool picture of his shop that I'll send you, and the term in architecture is hyperbolic paraboloid, and that's
Okay.
the shape of the roof. He built that himself. Like he did that.
And that's your inspiration for that.
Yeah, because I wanted to make a bow tie, but the bow tie shape I wasn't too big of a fan of. Sorry, George.
Sure.
And so I drew it out and I said, what shapes can fit in here? Because mechanically, a bow tie can be anything that is wider on the outside than it is in the middle. So if it starts out big out here and is thin in the middle, it should, in theory, work.
Right.
And so making a squiggly piece of brass, I don't think it'll work really well as wood because of short grain, long grain, different things.
Right.
But you'd have to cut it out correctly. There's going to be a comment somewhere that's like, yes, you can. And so, but to avoid any keyboard warriors, I'll just say it's going to be difficult. However, like making a squiggle out of metal, or brass, I can do that. And then I can practice freehand routing or template routing, all of those different things. And because I was literally doing them all by hand by freehand routing. And then I had to do it. I did a white oak tabletop where I put like 5 of them in there, or 5, or like anywhere from like 5 to 7 of them in there by hand. And I was like, by the end of it, my hands were like, I was like, I need a template. It took way too long. And so, so doing all of those things, and you learn the skills necessary to complete each task along the way, and that's my thing. So pull out of yourself where you come from, what you do, all of those activities, your family history. For me, I know that, you said, a language, design language, I think, and designing things is a language. And so my grandmother was a seamstress as well. So she was very creative, and she did a lot of African-American quilting techniques. And what those were forms of communication. So there were tons of symbols all the time. So there were things like crow's feet, and those could lead to like a map on the quilt. It's crazy. Like they had an entire encoded way of communicating across people, to tell each other messages, say that I found my family, I'm looking for this person, back in slavery. And so is really, really unique for her to showcase that. And she was obviously a crafts person. So I knew that she did crafts. I just didn't. I think that was for me. And then now I get to imbue that into my work by, hey, like I can, talk about these things that are relevant to me and utilize these shapes that are common to maybe communicate a deeper message or communicate whatever message I want,
It's up to you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's beautiful the way you've done it. I didn't know how layered this was, and I absolutely love it. It speaks. It's always been, like an like I've been watching your stuff for a while now, and it's always been super inspirational. Like your design voice, it's just like so powerful. But I didn't know how layered it was, and how you approach it is so beautiful too. Like it just makes for it makes it even, it's like the things you see in work sometimes are understated. And then it's like, when you hear it, you're like, oh yeah, I would have never guessed the squiggle was Nakashima's shop at all. Yeah. I was like, that's a Robby thing. I just didn't know
you so much.
I had no idea what it was from.
And it's my way of like, I think his stuff should be in like the National Archive of American things. Like he's so, I don't know. He's just a very big inspiration to me. His story is unique. The fact that his family was in an internment camp during World War II. My granddad, George, fought in World War II, and so it was like, that was significant to me. The fact that he was a hardworking guy after he got out of there and built his own shop from nothing. It was like, man, my granddad came back from the war without much to our name. And him and my grandma worked their asses off to build this thing, for us so that we could be okay now. And then I found a lot of commonality between us and his ethos and what he believed about wood, about how you should approach and respect trees, not just trees, but making things. It reminded me a lot of what the profound respect and admiration and
detail my grandmother held, making things her whole life, no matter her financial situation. You know, I have things from when she first started making things to the day that her hands couldn't work anymore. Hundreds of quilts, like hundreds of needlepoint things. And it was just like, man, if this old lady can keep doing this, I can figure out a way to keep woodworking, you know?
And you will. I love that.
Thank you.
Man, it's been such a privilege talking to you. And it's like we're running out of time, but I like want to keep. We have to just have you back. Dude, you have so much insightful things to say. And it's like such a huge inspiration already. But on top of it, just talking to you has been like even more inspirational. I'm so motivated right now.
Thank you so much. I'm so stoked. I'm so stoked to meet you finally. I love what you're doing. And, you know, this has been insane, you know, like this platform has been, you know, talked about to me and explained to me since I met Rebel. So it's like heralded, you know, like in my mind. So for me to have the opportunity to talk is really, really cool. And I'm just so thankful to just be able to share space with you and to just be able to do it.
Man, it's a privilege. Seriously, like sharing space with you it's thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm so inspired right now. Like I get to do this pretty often, and just this conversation has been incredible.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. I agree. Thank you so much.
Well, that does it for this episode of Shop Talk Live. Thank you so much for listening. If you have questions or comments, please send them in to shoptalk@finewoodworking.com. And if you would be so bold as to leave a 5-star review on iTunes or whatever podcast app you're listening on, that would certainly help us out. And as always, thank you so much to Unlimited members and Fine Woodworking subscribers. You're the engines that make this ship go. All right, we'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode. Thanks for listening.